So there's the delay. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, I guess we're back now. So we've been experiencing some technical difficulties, as you can see, but this is part 2, continuing on where we left off. The stream did end, so uh, well, welcome back. So we're going to continue off a little bit with Massey's and then go from there to the next site. But we do actually have another guest joining us right now. So would you like to say hi?
Well, hello. I'm here now. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Jax, welcome.
uh, yeah, happy to be here again. Sounds like we did have some troubles in the first little bit, but hopefully it goes smoothly from here on out.
So
Only
the
hope.
last, yeah, the last thing that we were looking at for Massey's is they do have a new little trench along this building here. This building, from what I believe, is that this is connecting to their basically their launch site, and will be their launch control center. Which is kind of sad. They've got a couple of windows, and that's it, or
You mean
it's
launch
just an
control
office.
center for the actual launch site, or are you saying for the Raptor test stand?
For the actual launch site for the orbital test flight 1. So they have indicated through documentation for the FAA that it would be located at, plus the other documentation I've seen with FOIA requests, that their launch site operations would be basically a mobile home trailer type system like this. That's a double wide office. Um, and it would be at the Astra site, which this is close to it. So it's either this or there's a completely separate entity that hasn't been built yet, which is odd considering this would be about the right timing for it.
At the
Um,
Astra site, that's the school.
yeah, it's the school, but this is in the same area as that, so they might not call Massey's like we do. We like to call things by their old names, not their names that SpaceX calls them. That might be the issue there. So they do have communications for communicating with the, let's say, the build site and potentially even the launch site here as well. So they've got, looks like, wireless communications, and I suspect they would also have fiber run at least to the Highway 4 and then split into the dark fiber that should be there.
It sounds like people are having trouble hearing Thomas.
Have I been breaking up?
I think your volume's low. Reading chat.
All
I'm
right.
not sure what there is to do about that, but I'm not sure if
Am I low to you guys though?
No.
All right. So I'll think you need Star. You could fix that for us. We'll be fixing it as we move along.
well,
Should be fixed now.
Okay. Thank you.
perfect.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I wonder how many people they could fit in there. Like, even not even people, just like workstations.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're going to be able to get a good view of it from this way, but it's the furthest thing from the site that they can launch from that is potentially operational. We've looked at the Astra site from above as well in the past, and they don't have a system like this set up there. It's basically the equivalent of a house, is what it looks like from the outside, and some gardens and some other things. Um, but this would be also potentially considered part of the Astra site. The entire area, I guess I could show you what we're talking about on a map. So this would be considered the Astra site. This would also potentially be considered part of the Astra site. So this entire region right here, I suspect they might consider as Astra. A lot of the properties they actually own in here as well. So there's a bunch of government land and then a few parcels that are private, and then the rest is all SpaceX in here.
Interesting. Yeah, I would like to see if they have anything new at the Astra site, like that maybe behind the structure that we just can't see.
Yeah, it could be that this just suddenly appears before orbital test flight 1, something like this, and that would be what they need. They just need something to put some computers and desks and then they will have their red team probably stationed here as well. Just like with SLS, they had a red team that saved the day, and we have the red team basically for SpaceX that I don't know what they're called, but the red team is an apt description as any that they go out to the site, they fix the valves, they make things work, and then they leave, and then we have a nice successful static fire, you know, an hour or two later. Yeah, that's usually the way things run around here.
So I'm guessing they would need to actually perform a static fire test from this location first.
Yeah, they would need to at least test their communications, basically have full control over the system to verify everything's connected right. Their internet's not going to go out or something. So it should be hardwired and a wireless connection for other parts. So they have basically two ways of connecting. So this would be like their backup. So for some reason, if fiber just didn't work, it got cut during the launch because the vehicle itself vibrated everything. At least they have control through this means as well. At least that's what I would suspect. Um, I think that was pretty much it for Massey's. So I'm going to go ahead and
So
move on,
here's the question
unless
though.
you have something else.
This is going to be a lot more than just, and I'm sorry to drag on this. I'm just like having a hard time wrapping my mind around like how many screens they would need to have up in there. Not just like the workstations, but I'm guessing the entire walls would be covered with screens as well too. Um,
Probably. So the walls would be covered in screens. There would be pretty much everything. I think Hawthorne would also have monitoring stations as well. So Hawthorne, they have the entire complex connected directly to this site as well. I would expect because they have the same capabilities from Hawthorne connected into the launch site at Vandenberg and the launch site on 39A, and uh, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't have those capabilities to connect as well. And there might be other offsite locations in the Brownsville area to just make sure that you have enough people watching and monitoring from remote workstations.
why not just build a wall in front of the Stargate building? You know,
They don't own that property. They could get permission to do renovations on it because they basically are doing a what is it called? They're paying for it, but they're not. They're renting.
right,
Can't remember
right.
the right word.
Interesting. Well, we kind of touched on most of the Massey stuff before the uh, the break that we took, so maybe we can swap over to Sanchez.
Let's do it. So Sanchez is looking pretty nice these days. They've made some big improvements. You can see one of them right there. So first off, do we want to just rip off the Band-Aid and say what we know this should be, or at least based off of documentation? It's called the Sanchez inventory tent. At least that's what documentation from the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation says. This would be equivalent to about 48,000 square feet, which is about what the square footage that they've listed. Actually, there's a decimal place misnumbering. Otherwise, the entire thing here would be about 48,000 square feet.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, that means that it's. Do you think that can include Raptors, or do you think that's just purely for booster parts, booster and ship parts?
The strange part, let's go to the ground shots real quick here. There is not a lot of room for anything to go in and out. So here's a good example. So we've got some doors. Actually, that's not a great example. Um,
Side, yeah.
actually, go from the inside. That'll work better. So you've got a single door that I think is right here. Yeah, and then you've got some other areas over to the right behind this scissor lift. That is pretty much it. These are not meant for people going in and out because there's a lot of power distribution going in from here. At least that's what they've got it for conduit. So that makes it a bit odd. Um,
And
go
there's
back to
no door on the other side.
there's one door on both sides. There's nothing on the front and the back. So let's go through to this one would work for the side here. So here's the door right here that hasn't been cut out quite yet. So you can see they've got concrete here, and it's just an archway of a door. They've got these short little stubs here. You might be able to get a forklift in and out of spots like this, but they would have to put in a whole other door system.
It almost looks like a delivery dock.
Yeah, these two would be probably good size, but it's just the height is my main concern. It would be equivalent of a double wide door, maybe a little bit taller. So actually, let me grab a reference model here, if I can find one. I'm looking for my 8.5-foot tall shipping containers that love to float around places like these guys. Okay, so this is 8.5 feet tall right here. So just using my mouse to give it a quick size scale. Yeah, it could fit about 8.5 feet. So it's about the same size or just a little bit shorter than a shipping container.
So when you look at the ground image from the front, looks like they've framed out that front wall, and just looking at that, I mean, there's one potential doorway left there.
I'd say no to that because they've got the pieces, not the best one. This one's better. The pieces right here to connect all the way across. It's just people are going in and out right here, and it's just an easy way of doing it.
Yeah.
So it's just a worker's access and egress. And I'm like, well, you could put a door here, but probably not because it's the same thing. This has tabbed, so it's going to go over as well for these particular parts. But
Very odd not having doors on the front or back side.
yeah, but it looks good on the inside of this building. It's got plenty of lighting, natural and fluorescent lights that are uh, pretty dense for the entire thing. So you've got lights from down at the very end. That one's out and that one's out, and there might be another one in there that they've knocked over. But yeah, they have a lot of lighting that they're putting in here.
I'm guessing
It'll
that's
be a
the
good.
power setting because that looks like just doesn't look very bright in there.
Well, we're looking from the outside, and so remember, if you're looking from outside in, everything looks dark. But when you're actually in there, it's readable. It's better than any warehouse I've been in. So there's probably some better ones out there. But this is pretty nice and bright as far as natural lighting coming in here and the number of lights they have in here. But yeah, it's apparently just a warehouse. The only thing I could think of at the time before that information came up was like a cafeteria because you can't get it's not big enough for larger objects. It doesn't look like it's even big enough for things like Raptors for those doors on the other side.
Yeah. No, I mean the only one that looks large enough for Raptors to go through it is um the tent on the back of the structure that they added on the back of the Mega Bay now.
Yep. So this has been improving tremendously. They've got all the siding pretty much done on this side. I think they've got the siding done on the other side as well. I have to move down a little bit further. Oh, actually, this is all Sanchez, so it doesn't show you the build side. We can jump back into that a little bit here. So other parts of Sanchez that we have going on, I guess we could look at it from the air first. So the United Rentals side, they've put in some more concrete. It's changed a little bit from this image. So we'll look at the ground shots, and day by day they've been making some progress there. So this is all just United Rentals. It's been fenced in, and we've been looking at these guys. They're not blast. They're more like blast diverters or something along those lines that you would see like on an airport runway. Uh, we haven't seen much of any change there. So the news on there is no news. um, but they have been moving things around over at really this end of the site. So Jax, do you want to jump in on this part?
So, yeah, I guess there's been a lot of activity over here recently. Well, I guess we should say we do have the nose cone base being reassembled right here. Effectively, kind of that confirms that they're going to be doing a test on a nose cone eventually at some point in the future. It's not dead.
Which one do you suspect they'll test first?
It's a tough one. I think ship 29 is being weird right now. And I do think that of all of them, it's the most likely. But I mean, anything can change. It's a tough one with this, especially because like we know they aren't afraid of making untiled ships that are just weird and screwed up. So I can't say for certain. I think that is the one we're watching right now. But just keep your eyes out. Now back at the Can Crusher, we've had a new test tank pull up. Yeah, right in that photo there. Now, where do I start here? If you follow the Ring Watchers on Twitter, and I suggest doing that, I feel like I sell out, but we've called this Test Tank 13, and it's a very unique name. We put a lot of thought into it because it's the 13th 9-meter wide test tank. I know. Now, that was an unofficial name, and we've been trying to find the official name for a bit now. It's a tough one because I don't know if I necessarily like the name they've given it. Do you have that photo on hand?
I should, but I'm not seeing it for some reason. Hold on, let me double check. It should stand right out to me. Must
Yeah,
have put it.
should
Oh,
stand out.
it's. Yeah, it's weird.
I can send it over if you want. Oh, the photos are right at the end when he was lifting it. I don't know if you have to. I'll just send it over.
I have it off in probably some other area here.
Okay, it's in live comms. So, this name is upsetting. It is the most baffling name that makes no sense. We all agree it makes no sense. It is Ship 26.1. Drop the mic.
26 is the ship that has bothered us just because it has no tiles, it has no flaps, and now this is ship 26.1. I think that number is now cursed.
Yeah, because one wasn't good enough. They had to make two.
So this is just the aft section, though, right?
This is it's the aft section from ship 28. Like this shouldn't be 26. It is. Yeah, you know what? I've given up worrying about it. Just crush it.
Well,
yeah.
speaking of crush it, it doesn't look so great right here. They haven't crushed it yet. It's not pressurized, but it has quite a bit of a dent. That doesn't give me a lot of hope for it, but that's something we've seen occasionally is that it'll come out with a bit of heat distortion from the welds, or even boom lifts running into the area up here, or even scissors lifts for that matter.
Yeah, it's a weird test tank.
But yeah, this is not too much of an issue. We've seen it before, and this will be a pressurized tank, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Now we can't be certain if they'll do it with water or cryo. I have a feeling it might be water looking at how they have it set up. What I thought was really interesting is something they don't typically do with ship test tanks is that on the front of it, they're actually going to be loading in through the quick disconnect, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, that is strange and different. So like this is Monday. They had, which test article is this here on Monday?
Now this is another one we don't know the number for. We've just called it like the skirt crusher test thing.
Yeah, it's like with the one flap.
Yeah.
So that's what this part over here is for. This tank right here is booster 2.1 or B2.1, right?
This was booster 2. There was a lot of mess with that naming, but we went back and confirmed that it was BN2.
Okay, I would call it a 0.1, but because it's now a tank that's like was a test tank, now it's not, but it's a water tank, and you can actually see that it's just surrounded by water, so they've got a little bit of a leak somewhere. I would still say that they're going to do any testing for not this test article because that's not the one I was looking for. I think it basically will be water because it's uncompressible. Here they don't have a lot of nitrogen to work with besides, going over and steal it from these tanks, which I guess they could, but you'd have to clear all of Remedios and the areas around the build site, which I don't think that's something they want to do. They're a production facility. Only for flights would they really do that.
Yeah, and I mean the reason we can say they probably won't do it at cryo is if they were going to be using thrust rams, you do it at cryo. But as far as we can tell, there aren't thrust rams under it, so they can just use water. It'll be fine. Yeah, a lot of progress over at the Can Crusher, getting things all tested up. Now, I don't know if we can go back to the ground photos, just moving along a bit. If we have the photos of maybe Mr.
Found the
Quinton.
label finally.
If we have the photos of Mr. Quinton, this was something I completely forgot to talk about last week.
Mr. Quinton on the that's on the build site.
Well, you have a photo of it just to the left right there.
Yes, that's the build site. Whoops.
But this was I completely forgot to talk about this last week, and so this test article has been around for ages. It's a very old one, first payload door that they ever built, and it's the one with the big door where it's the whole ring flips out. But then on the back side of it, they just put in cutouts for something like a Pez door. It's not a Pez door. It's like a Pez-ish door.
It's a reinforced Pez-ish door.
It's a Pez-ish door, but they didn't kind of fully cut it out. But so you can obviously, I think if you've seen what the ships look like, you can see the shape of this, how it looks like the Pez cutout. But if you just zoom in on the right side of this cutout, you can see that it doesn't continue all the way around. It's like 2 half pieces of a door. So it's very strange. And I don't know what this is about. I think some people have speculated that it could be for different satellites or whatnot, but
well, here's a crazy one. What if you took the Starlinks and put them sideways?
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. I want to actually see if we can get Nick to do some checking with the dimensions, see how that would work out.
I mean, this doesn't fit quite right. It's still too small from what I've been able to gather, but the idea would still be interesting to say, well, instead of having one door, which might be just too much of a cutout, they might have basically 2 doors that go up and down together, with the center part basically acting as the structural member to support the whole thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility as well. It's because I mean they don't make Pathfinders for no reason. I mean, there's a time and a place. So
people are looking at our stuff. Let's bug them. Let's do something crazy. Okay, I got an angle grinder.
Yeah,
that would be a waste of somebody's time and our time too. But it's interesting to see how they've gone through and make these changes, make the cuts. And the weirdest part about this one is that it's already a very compromised structure in a way, because pretty much most of it is a cutout piece that they stuck back on. I think they welded it back on, but it's still kind of compromised structurally a bit there.
Yeah, I mean, at most this will be a cutting Pathfinder.
I'm going to jump to the build site just for that one piece, and then
I'm not sure if you got a photo of Mr. Quinton from the ground this week.
But yeah, this might have it here.
I did post last week's ground photo that I forgot to show.
So there it is with the cutouts, but I need something a bit more zoomed in. Let me try again.
Here, if you check out live comms, I have a better photo of it.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
This is the photo I forgot to show last week, which was my bad. Doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, it's having a harder time. There we go.
Perfect. So yeah, it's pretty interesting exactly what they've done to our friendly Quint here. But I mean, I'm sure we'll see more stuff happen with it in time. This is one of those sit and wait situations for something to happen. Not sure if you have the photo.
Yeah, I'm inserted it, but I think I've inserted it in the strangest place because it's not appearing.
Well, I think I'm not sure if we should worry about it.
Okay, sorry about that.
I guess the next best place to go.
Ah, there we go.
There we go. So yeah, here's a much more front-on view. Certainly something.
Yeah, you can see the stringers on the other side, but they've got this in a very interesting cutout. And this is not really big enough for the Starlink, as far as I could tell. It's just a bit too narrow. So the Starlinks would need to be going about up to here because of the corners here.
Is it possible that these are for a different type of satellite altogether?
Yeah.
It's definitely something we'll need to take a close look at with the dimensions and everything, because this is definitely something.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is that like, with your Starlinks are pretty much the only thing you're going to be able to launch out of, or launch using the payload bay that we've seen so far, and even that we don't even know if they can do that because, well, as far as we know, they're about to cover up the one on S-25, right? Or they already have.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in
Yeah.
a minute or so.
Anyways, so if that's the case, then they're going to have custom designs for each payload type at this point, because they don't have like a swinging door that just opens up all the way so they can just let everything out at the same time. There's no payload fairing or anything like that. So I don't know if there's like a standard size that most small sats have to fit underneath, but this could be something like that where it's just like a general small sat. Um, oh wow, what if this was Windows for crew?
Those would be some really big windows, and it's in the wrong place, I think.
They could be just the first ones.
True, the smaller ones would be my idea of windows, but they do want to do some big ones, right? But that's all over the nose cone that they really were looking at windows, not the side of the barrel. Or at least that's what I thought.
You never know. I mean, the situation can change because, like, when you're in orbit, it doesn't really matter what your orientation is unless you're actually under power, right? So, um, while they're just tumbling through space on their way to Mars or wherever they're going, they can change their orientation so that it doesn't really matter that you're on the barrel instead of on the tapered nose cone.
So the chat's wondering if the opening is for perhaps OneWeb or maybe Star Shield or CubeSat slots in the
OneWeb would
center.
make a lot of sense.
OneWeb
Yeah.
or any other consistent large satellite would.
There's definitely something different going on here. I think that's for sure.
So here's the other side of it, which was the area that we talked about that was cut out. So you could tell that this is the side because you can see the top right here. There's a gap, and it goes all the way up to about here. It's not even 180 degrees. I think it's actually might be. Yeah, that looks about right. I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
So-
it's the very first payload door that they built and then abandoned it.
Hone Win is asking how high are those openings?
It's the same height as the current pest dispenser, whatever that is. I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Well, you can see that this is a 6-foot ring. We have 5 of them, right? So this should be about 12 feet up right here. So that's about 6 inches down. So it'd be about 11 and a half feet up here. And then the second ring would, let's see if I can figure that one out real quick. Actually, there's a nice
You know, it'd be
second
really
ring would be
cool
down here,
if the
right in this spot.
solar array came out from there.
Like a tongue.
Yeah, like, well, 2 of them, like 2 solar arrays that, like, extend out and then fold outwards, you know?
That would be a
Assuming they
good
did
area to do it.
be on the inside of the vehicle instead of outside.
Because you can't obviously do that in the areas that they were showing before in the renderings. I think they were closer to the engines or in the tank section. It's like, no, there's unless you're like folding them out from cylinders, you have to fold it out from somewhere that's like this, or potentially the engine compartment. But things are going to break very easily there.
Yeah, I don't see them being inside of the vehicle. I would imagine they would be able to pull it back in. Um, or sorry, out. I don't see it being outside of the vehicle. To me, being inside makes the most sense.
Yeah, the other side of it, I'm thinking, is that they are not actually going to do solar at all. I'm thinking they're going to go nuclear just because it provides more power. And the question would be, how are they go through with that for, let's say, HLS, at least for the first missions? That would be very interesting. Um, but basically, the idea is with Mars and everything else there, you don't do solar, at least until you can get enough capacity of production of materials on site. Then you could start working on doing solar, but it would be all in situ because the number that you would need was just insane. Like this number of starships just bringing solar panels, uh, it would be like 90% solar panels. And that's just so you can do some interesting simple things like making fuel and going beyond that. But for just a HLS variety, yeah, they could do solar, but they could also do it on the nose cone. That way, you're always pointed up and it's above the horizon, unless the the time that you land is wrong, which I don't think they will. They'll calculate this down to a precise day and time of when they're expected to land, and the lunar day is 2 weeks. So you have nice daylight for 2 weeks, and then the night is another 2 weeks. Okay, so we're at the build site. I guess I'm thinking if there's anything else that we had at Sanchez that we should cover before we completely jump over. Was there anything else that you guys can think of?
There was just the fact they moved all of the workstations for the United Rentals over to the Sanchez site. So they in the aerials it shows one trailer, but in the ground photos it shows that they've moved everything else over as well too now.
Good point. Let's look at the ground photo there. Because we did say we'd look at that, and that's not the Sanchez site. I'm sorry. Looking through the build site, looking for Sanchez. There's a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
images
how
that
much?
leaked in there. All right, here we go. So the Sanchez site that we're looking at from this perspective.
That one will be good. Yep.
So now we've
So
got this new one.
I thought there was 3, but I guess there's only 1. But that is their. I think they store parts in the yellow one, and then um, the black one is the actual office trailer.
Looks like it. I mean, you've got the Starlink on it. Best place to put it would be with an office. And I don't recognize this particular Starlink on the container, but they did have a black container during the flyover last week that is now here, which I suspect it's the same one. But they added this on the same time they moved the trailer or the container.
Yeah, so they're slowly moving that entire operation over to here, as we've kind of been saying, and this is similar to what we expect them to do, I guess, with um, everything that's in Tent One. Is just like slowly Tent One and Two slowly move them over to where they're supposed to go, um, and then that allows them to open up more space, or in the case of the Tents One and Two, to start taking those down hopefully soon.
Okay, now we can officially jump over to the build site.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to when they get that Star Factory up and running. Because yeah, it's an impressive building.
So Star Factory is what you're kind of looking at first off.
Well, yeah, they're still doing a lot of work in there. It's becoming more and more active every day. We do have some ground shots inside of the factory actually, which were pretty nice to take a look at. Got to see some rings and stuff in there.
Do you see what's missing in here? There's a lot of things missing.
Yeah, that's one of the things they've been doing over the last couple of weeks. I've noticed in the flyovers, everything's been going inside. Yeah, so they're getting properly set up in there with their work stands and platforms, tooling, and everything. Or they're scrapping it all.
So yeah, let's go take a look at the ground shots of it on the inside. So we're looking at Monday from the aerial shots to Friday for the ground shots.
Yeah,
We counted quite a few rings here.
yeah, it's they're having quite a party in there.
So
So
there's one that's hiding right here, just this tiny little one poking out here.
yeah, yeah, our little tiny friend there, that is the aft sleeve. So it doesn't have a dome yet. For booster 13, which is insane that we still have booster 7 out at the pad and 13's already materializing pretty in pretty major parts. Just to the left of it, we have the common dome sleeve for ship 28.
Okay.
That's yet to be put over a dome, but they're working on it. Then to the left of it, we have the payload bay for ship 30.
Now the question that people are going to ask immediately seeing this, the doorway, he's looking from a down perspective, and this should be a lot lower. Why is this so tall?
Our best, I guess our best assumption for that is it's on some kind of tall work stand right now. They're doing a lot of work on the inside to put stringers in right now. So they probably just have an elevated work stand so they can get underneath easily. They can lift that off with the bridge cranes inside, and it does fit through the door. We know they fit through the door because we've seen them come out before. So
Otherwise, they would build it too tall, then they'd have to cut it up, and
that'd
that
be
would not be.
unfortunate.
It'd be like, well, we can't get it out of the building. Why? The door's too small. And that actually does happen in facilities like this. But you don't expect it to be happening in a facility that's built specifically to make these kinds of rings. But yeah, you probably have it up off the ground, and they need to get underneath these to work on them. So that might be why. So
Yeah.
it's just a 4-ring section, and you're looking up at 6 feet right here, at least between this point and a point right about here. And so you have to have the capability of people walking underneath, and then they go up in scissor lifts up and down to work on the stringers in here.
Yeah, which you can see are a bit patchy right now. The ring that center screen, you can see the weld marks for stringers, but if you scroll up, you can see they aren't there yet. So that's what they're currently doing with this barrel, getting those stringers welded in.
And then which barrel was this again? Sorry, I think I interrupted on which one you were saying it was.
Seems to be the payload bay for ship 30.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's weird that we're making a crossover into the 30s already. It's
And
so
this one?
strange. That one right there, can't say for certain yet. Rohan thinks it's a methane tank section for booster 11. I'd say I agree with that. If you zoom in right on the top of it, there are little white little bits, and these are pretty cool because I'm not sure what they did in the tents. We've never been able to see this, but those are little spaced out stringer alignment pieces. So they clip those on the top spaced apart, then the stringers just kind of align with those so they can weld them on all evenly spaced.
Do you think they weld these particular clips on, or do you think they have a way of separating them so that they're all perfect, like it's a ring, or how do you
I,
think they're putting that together?
I almost wonder if it's a ring because I don't think they weld them because when we look at a ring section that's finished, as far as I can tell, there aren't like obvious signs that something was welded. But yeah, it's pretty cool tooling how they have it set up.
Is this for internal or external stringers that we're talking about here?
So in this case, it'll be internal, but for the external ones, it's just flipped around. It's the same concept of a piece.
Okay.
So yeah, then off
And there's
to the
another one right here.
yeah, I think there's something back there. We weren't not the slightest clue what that is. It's so plain and fresh that we can't say, or at least I can't say.
Freshly
Um,
born. Okay.
it's a newborn. Um, yeah, we have a booster LOX tank section here. Booster 11, aft tank number 4. So that when they stack that, it'll be 16 rings tall. Off to so we have these brackets in the center of the barrel. Those are going to be for your autogenous pressurization pipework. So they pump the hot gases back from the engines to keep the tanks nice and pressurized. And one of the cool things we talked about last week with Booster 10 is just off to the side of this barrel on the right, there are COPV mounts pre-installed. That's a new thing that they're starting with Booster 10. I think I said Booster 11. I meant 10. Sorry. So yeah, Booster 10 aft tank number 4. Then off to the left, which we have some TPS pins on this section. That's the forward dome sleeve for ship 28, which is really shiny.
There was something special about this as well. That was the weld line and where it is placed with the string, these pins. What was that special thing about what you were talking about before yesterday?
Yeah, so this hasn't been sleeved over a dome yet. And if you point out right where the bottom of the internal stringers are, right there, that's where the dome gets welded into place. And on the forward domes of the ship, SpaceX puts external stringers over top. And because of that, they don't do tile pins. The stringers would just go over top of the pins, so it's pointless. Once the stringers are on, they just glue the tiles over top, and it's what they've been doing since ship 24. So they seem to like it.
Would these be stringers or more like weld doublers?
They right here they are stringers, low profile thin stringers that has a thin strip of steel, and you'll notice them. They kind of look like bands on the ship. It has a thin strip of steel welded over top of it to make it a smooth surface. It's pretty impressive. It's a smart way of doing it. But because they glue the tiles in those locations, they don't need pins. And brand new with Shift 28, they were thinking, they were like, how can we speed up our production processes? They said we can put on the pins before we sleeve it. It saves time when it'd just be sitting around, and it's not like anything's stopping us. So that's what they did. They put on the pins early, which we've never seen before. And honestly, it's really sharp. It's that's the kind of stuff I like seeing, getting rid of what would be wasted time.
That is a
Yeah,
really cool way of doing it. So I'm just imagining how they will basically put the pieces on for the I guess you could say low profile stringers. And I want to say, how thick are those?
I
Because
have
I'm
photos
not
of them.
familiar with that.
I can find a photo of them.
Okay. Because yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds extremely strong to basically put a band around the stringers as well. You're preventing a lot of other forces at work. So there's quite a bit of tension at play. So stainless steel and metal in general is really good at tension. Compression, not the greatest, but by putting something under tension, so this entire area will want to expand out because that's where the tank section wants to be. Where this basically like this line is all the way over. You can see the stringer where it ends there. Oh, that is fantastic.
All right, it's just uploading in live comms. I have a photo from Mauricio back in June of a section of ship 25. It's just finishing uploading. There we go.
See if I can do it again. Nope, doesn't want to do it the same way. I have to download it directly.
Yeah, that's annoying, but this was a good spot for Mauricio. He got pretty lucky to see this because I'm not certain that we've actually seen these any other time.
Oh, that is crazy.
But yeah, they're these just really thin stringers.
Yeah, the thickness is probably what, half an inch, if even that.
Yeah, so then the thin steel layer goes over top, and then they just put thinner tiles, so it's all flush.
Well, they don't have the standoffs either, so that makes it easier with the tile. And the
Yeah,
tile could be the same thickness; it's just glued directly onto the surface, and it's not a thicker tile like the other ones that they glue onto the surface.
yeah, they have a bunch of different thicknesses, but yeah, this is how it all gets reinforced. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's an incredible one. Thank you for sharing that image, because now I can actually see the thickness there, and it's kind of interesting how this all goes together. So this is something we're gonna spot again. Maybe it's in the same section because you can actually see through both of these.
This is the exact same barrel.
It's the exact same one. Okay, because
Yeah.
yeah, we'll actually just jump right to that because it's the shiny object.
Um,
So ground photos is actually what I'm looking for. Sorry.
yeah, so just getting into that, we'll talk a bit more about some of the other work with Ship 25, just after we touch on this cool little detail.
Yeah, was it this image here?
Uh, oh, I can't remember. Oh, it'll have to be lower down.
It'll be this one, I think. Yep, there we go. You can see it. So you've got this main circle, and you've got these little shaded areas right here that looks like a donut that's kind of gray. They're cameras.
Little cameras under protective covers. It's we've been looking for more cameras all over the ship, and well, there they are.
Yeah, we've talked about the cameras. They've had similar ones like this in the past, but these ones you can really see it. So a bunch of these covers that will be the same size and shape will usually have a yellow patch over it. That's going to be a radome for basically radio communications that they have a cover over it, and then you'll usually put tiles over it. So that's what you'll see with these guys. It's the same shape, but then it's got a yellow patch, and that's the radome. And then the tile is acting like a radome as well. It allows the radio to be radio frequencies to be transmitted from here. Um, but then the tiles themselves are, well, heat shield tiles. It's basically preventing any heat from damaging the radomes or the radios behind it.
Yeah, yeah, that was just small, fun little detail I think that we've been looking for. And there's another camera set below the flap there. Yeah, those are two cameras looking in different locations.
This was my favorite because it's not only a camera, but it's also a heat shield system.
Yeah. Hey, it's that's how you. This is going to be some of the most important cameras on the ship because it's going to be watching the flaps during reentry.
I would love to see that. And they've got Starlink that should be on board as well. And it will be actually just right here where the panel is.
Yeah.
So there's another huge detail on Ship 25 here. That before we go to the bigger one, do you want to go for the small one?
Yeah, and I guess we'll have to touch on this on Ship 24 a bit too later because there's been some weird stuff going on. But those vents, I was looking back and they've been like that for a little while now, actually. But they have a small little plate put over the center of the vent. It's the shinier part, and that just tightens up the exit. It's going to make them more RCSy
Yeah, it basically by decreasing the throat size, they increase the velocity, but decrease the volume that will go through it.
Yeah, and that should help them for whatever these vents are doing. Because from what we can tell, they want these vents all to act as RCS thrusters in effect, every single one of them. And some work on Ship 24 recently further suggests that. We'll touch that over at the launch site. But yeah, it's pretty cool, and they're just these are like those little details that this thing's actually gonna fly. Hopefully, probably, maybe.
And speaking of which, let's get to the big one.
Speaking of flying, it's door's gone, door's done. There are 6 holes cut into the payload PEZ door, which is exactly what was done to Ship 24's before the cover was lifted up and welded on. Now, we talked about this last week, how the door was being closed shut. They had started work. This is nail in the coffin. It's done.
You
So
can see the weld lines right here.
yeah,
Those are the main ones that we were looking at last week. Now it's like, yeah, they put holes in it. They did that with Ship 24, as you just said. And yeah, there's no way Starlinks are going to go in this ever.
no, yeah, they chose to end that, and these holes are so that when they put the cover over top, we've had Elon Musk state that the payload bay and nose cone are going to be pressurized at least a little bit. And these holes are going to allow that cover, the area under the cover, to be pressurized as well, just to equalize it all. So yeah, it's done. Off to the side of the door, pretty interestingly, the external stringers that were reinforcing it were cut off, which I'm not sure they're done with. I think we're going to see something happen there.
Well, I think that they're, instead of being a very custom plate that goes over it, they're just going to be like, well, we've got the right size. Just go through and put on a equivalent of a stainless steel sheet all the way around to here that's been curved.
What my thing is just that those were there for a reason. There's no question about that. Something is changing to make it so they aren't needed. I wonder if they'll put on more stringers like on top of the cover.
Yeah, I think that would be about right.
Yeah, we'll see that in the coming weeks as they get that work done.
The one thing that's really unfortunate is this part right here. Like, I don't mind that this will be covered up if they were able to open up the door and close it, because it's like, well, we opened the door and closed it in space, and we did a simulated ejection of Starlinks, and we got several errors. Congratulations, we got errors. But yeah, it's not going to actually launch Starlinks, which really hurts. Like, I want them to launch as many as possible. They just got approval from the FCC to launch, what was it, like 1,260 or something? Like this large number of version 2 Starlink satellites. And that's going to be their money maker that really brings up everything here.
Speaking of that, Thomas, do you think maybe now is a good time to talk about the other updates as far as what the current administration is doing to try to speed things up for spaceflight in general?
So yeah, that one is interesting because it's a general space flight. So the current administration, they are putting in a executive order so that they can, or the space industry specifically, Blue Origin, Sierra Space, all these companies that are doing orbital reef or any of these private space stations, that they will actually have a legal framework to work under. Because otherwise you have uncertainty, which creates market instabilities and those kinds of things. So that will be a positive, potentially positive a direction that will take things. The other part was a while back, the FAA had actually already gone through and removed a bunch of requirements. So it used to be that they had like 3 launch licenses. Now they're down to like just 1 launch license. So it's basically actually 2 really. One's the launch site, so you get a launch license for your launch site, and one's for your vehicle. But you don't have to go through and have another one, because it used to be like it was equivalent of a driver's license, a license plate for your car, license plate for let's see here. Can't remember what the third one was that was similar to that, but it was very interesting because they had the site, the vehicle, and the launch itself. And now they've just brought it down to you only have the launch.
And
That's
that makes it so that as long as nothing changes with the vehicle, they have unlimited launch licenses.
pretty much they don't have to go through and submit as much paperwork as they would have otherwise. So with like SN8 and other vehicles like that, they were submitting paperwork for every change that was to the vehicle. Now it's actually a lot less of that direction. They still need to show some safety information to say, yes, this vehicle is safe as far as this will not pose a health hazard to the public. Um, but that's basically calculations based off of probabilities and if basically the FTS goes off at different stages in flight, what those probabilities would be that something could go wrong. It's like 1 in trillions of odds that somebody could get hurt or killed by debris or anything along those lines. Most of it is the broken windows or other things like that. They have to look at that as well. But yeah, so they've really streamlined that process already. And so the question that we were looking at before of the can crusher and all the test articles saying that they were for FAA, that no longer is true. So part I think 450 of the FAA has gone through and changed that. If I remember right, if it's 450. But anyways,
So basically, those are structural tests for SpaceX, not for FAA.
yes. So it'd be the SpaceX wants to go through and confirm their simulations. They want to confirm reality, and that does have something to do with safety if you think about it that way. But it's not as in depth as it was before. So in depth practices that they had to do static fires for new engines, for instance, for SNA. That was one of the requirements. It was a brand new engine, and the FAA is like, nope, you got to static fire this before you can even do it. Now it's like, well, you might not need to necessarily do that. You just need to prove that it's the same model of engine. Okay, it's good to go. So if you had something brand new, they would like you to have test data, but I don't think they require it as much. It's a very interesting, streamlined process. We'll see how well it works out in the coming years. Bringing up. Okay. So Starlink is the number was 7,500, according to Dave. And then when Indian Star, are you there?
I'm here.
Would you like to go through and grab some donations while we have a chance?
Yeah, I have a lot of donations actually. There are, let's start from the top. So we have a $2 donation from Jim Cabot at the very beginning of the first stream. He was saying that the second stream, sorry, he was saying your volume was a little too low, but then shortly after that, when we corrected it, he said, sounds great now. We also received a $20 donation from John Dopker, who says, he says, for sure, who needs tech support? Not you. Y'all got this. Amazing behind the scenes techie talk in Discord. Y'all are awesome. And then Yazada joined with a $10 donation, says, thanks for getting the stream sorted out. There's a $20 donation from Drop Bear, who says, thank you for your continued effort to bring us these amazing shots, Mauricio. A few dollars for the fuel fund. And there is a there's a train of donations that are coming through now for my swear jar. There's a
Oh dear.
Yes, there's a $10 donation from John Dopker. Says and he started the train. Thank you, John Dopker. For Indian Star's Discord swear jar. Jim Cabot joined in with another $10 and says, I'm in for the jar fund. Then Mistletoe Prophet comes in with another $10 and says, I'll match that, and another 10 for Indian Star's swear jar. And then Astro Joe joined in with a $10 donation and says, choo choo. Yeah, Mauricio's right. I appreciate all of you guys for this swear jar. I'm sure everybody here does. I will be sure to watch my potty mouth. And there's one more donation that we received from JK Video for £5. He actually asked what the distance was from Massey's to the launch pad. And I know that it was answered in chat, but maybe when we have a moment, we can answer that question.
I can jump right into that question. Let's just take a second here. So from Massey's here to the launch pad, coming right up. I'm looking for distance. Where did distance? There it is. So we've got 6.68 miles, or about 10.75 kilometers. So not too bad. And that's just from the middle of Massey's over there. So it's plus or minus a bit. But yeah, it's way outside of their exclusion zone that they've talked about, or rumors have talked about. I've heard of exclusion zones all the way up to 6 miles, which would be really too close to a lot of areas. The one that's the big one is this area. So people are wondering specifically if Raptor Roost, Starship Station, Rocket Ranch, if they will be able to go to there, because they'll have police at Richardson potentially. The big one is the first orbital test flight, whether it'll be blocked at here or here. So basically, the question is, are residences still allowed to stay along the river here? And that one's a big question that we have not found the answer to. So until we get closer to the actual date, we won't know. I'm hoping that these are still open, which will be kind of interesting. That they'll have the control center being over here and viewers over here, which that would be interesting.
I had a question about this specifically. If the exclusion zone is that far out, will SpaceX be working with the Mexican authorities to be able to clear out the Mexican side of it? I assume that's going to be kind of difficult, per se. There's
They
not
would have
really much going on over there, anyways. But yeah, I'm just asking.
Yeah, they'd have to work with the FAA directly, because that's at least for space flight activities, you'd have to go through your country of origin's government to make those official requests. So at least an official request would be put through from the FAA, and then the FAA would basically talk to the Mexican government, and then they would basically say, well, okay, this is what SpaceX would like to do, and then SpaceX would talk to the Mexican government directly after that. At least once those first introductions are made. But that's part of how some of the international treaty stuff will be working. Is you have to go to a higher level, and then those higher levels talk, and then sometimes it'll just get kicked right back down and say, nope, they're not having any of that. But this one, I don't think that would be too much of an issue. This is not a populated area. You have a few cattle ranchers in here. Mostly the cattle ranching that I've seen is actually in this area. Wait, yeah, right here. So this is the most occupied area. So it's way beyond the exclusion zone. You actually do have some habitats and domiciles and all those things, but it's mostly, I think from right here, you've got a mesquite little area along in here, but the cows I've mostly seen in this area. And that's a bit over 15 miles, or I've got an extra one in there, but I think. Oh, wait, now I'm going back and forth. That doesn't work.
So
Well,
what's the final number?
for that one for this area, it's, I don't know. I have to reset it.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. I have a few more donations that came in before we move on. We have a $13.99 Canadian, sorry, 13 Canadian dollars and 99-cent donation from Tech Controls. $20 donation from Joey Bag of Donuts, who says keep up the good work. And then we just received a €2.49, I don't know what you call change in euros, from Anthony Monahan, who says where exactly is the Sanchez site?
All right, so that's another one for Google Maps and also the aerial shot. So I'll just go to Google Maps first. This is what we call the Sanchez site. So all along here, that's Sanchez. So Sanchez is we call it that because it was owned by Sanchez Oil and Gas, and now it's leased by SpaceX, and then it's like leased or subleased right over here for United Rentals. But this is the area we call Sanchez. So one thing to note is that the entire site is basically pointed northeast in that direction. So all aerial shots with Highway 4 right here are kind of just askew to northeast in that direction. Where Highway 4 up at the launch site, it's pretty parallel, but it's not close. It's not perfect. So this would be the north direction going this way. So now that I fixed that, it skews it a bit more. But
You know,
yeah, this is north.
the funny thing about this is every week Thomas likes to do an overview, like to give everybody like, hey, this is the launch site, this is the build site, and in my mind, I'm always like, everybody knows what these places are. But thanks for proving that was right, or I was wrong, actually. And yeah, sometimes it is good to just give an overview of like where things are actually located. So shout out to Google Maps.
They do get some good work. But yeah, here's the Sanchez site, as we call it, and remember it's kind of angled a bit differently, so it should actually be, this direction is north, that going this way. Anyways, that's the quick overview. Any other questions or other donations?
The donations are flush right now. There are questions though, but they're not on the topics we're currently on. So I think we should move on, and we can hit them at the end if we have time.
Yeah, let's hop over to the launch site. And before we do that, if everybody can do me a favor and hit that like button if they haven't already, I greatly appreciate all of you. And shout out to everybody who stayed with us through the technical difficulties, because that was a little bit of a rough start. But we got it together, and thank you guys for still being here.
All right, we're not going to skip directly over to the launch site. I've got
you're
one
right.
other place to go to. I know you love the launch site. It's the business end of the of the whole thing.
He's also Stage 0 Zach, remember?
Yes. He's got one love here, and we know what it is.
Just like Jax is a ring watcher.
Okay, so this is the area that I like to call the integration site. But it's the interesting part is what's kind of changed over here a little bit recently. So they've been digging up a lot of dirt, obviously, in this section, getting prepared and ready to allow trucks to deliver Starlinks to this door instead of this big door over here. But the big part, and I'll just kind of skip to the end here. There actually is a couple of interesting areas. Oh, everything's interesting to me. But anyways, let's go right to the PEZ loader. So the PEZ loader, it's out and about, and I think I know why. This will kind of require going back to some other pictures real quick from other areas of the site. But I think what's going to go on here is they're going to put a cover over this that will connect directly to the vehicle. So we've got some pictures from the build site at Sanchez that I'll have to jump back to show that real quick. So let's first start off with Sanchez. I can't remember where it was in the aerial shot, but it was pretty obvious once you saw it. Do you remember, Zach, where the adapter for the PEZ loader was at the aerial
it's
shot?
to your left a little bit. So if you go top middle left of the screen, it's right there. Oh, you missed it.
Oh, there it is. Yes. Thank you. So there's this piece. They
We
painted it
also have a
black.
pretty good ground shot of it as well, too.
Yeah, let me jump right to that as well. I can find where I left it. There it is. So this is obviously going to have another piece welded directly to that. I expect it will be like a 90-degree angle or something, so that it goes up against the vehicle flush, and then it has some padding as well. Then they've got an area that's going to be an access panel, I believe, and this is, I think, going to go on the PEZ loader. The weird problem that Jax points out, it's black. The PEZ loader is white, and it would look different. Like this weird thing sticking out of it.
I mean, it is what it is. You got to get that base primer on there, and I don't know. It just feels right. If we maybe we'll be surprised, and it'll end up being something.
Yeah, maybe it's something else, but it fits the dimensions, the size, and what we were expecting. So by that account, it works.
All it needs is some bumpers on it.
Yeah, the other part was with the build site. Let's see if I've got the right area here. Looking for, I believe it was this one in here. Maybe it was from last week. Now I'm thinking about it and looking at old images or thinking of old images. Yeah, that's what it is. There was a piece that's over at the build site at the ground fabrication building. That particular piece, I think, will go on top of it. So it's got 2 points of contact that will allow it to touch the starship and be able to be aligned properly. So you don't have to deal with it misaligning at strange points. Yeah, I'm just double checking to see if there's any other shots of it here. No, there is. So I'll go back to the integration site here. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting piece. The idea here is that this integrations building is a low level clean room. It's like the lowest level. It's above your house, but barely as far as how it's a clean room environment. They could do some other things to make it cleaner, but you'd have to have walls and more air handling units to basically do all of that. And so far, we haven't seen those things happen. They have some air handling units, but it's not at the ceiling height level. That's where you typically would have the air handling up here.
So 33 Raptors just asked a question, or made a statement actually, and I have a question. He says that he thinks that the box is white to help with temperature control. Do you agree with that?
Well, the thing that's interesting about it is that it'll be sitting out in the ambient environment. As long as it's got some temperature increase, let's say from the sun, a black body effect will increase the speed at which it increases the heat intake for the black body, and also the out. So it releases heat faster and pulls it in faster versus a white one, which is slower on both ends. So that could definitely have something to do with it. Why they have this one white, the other one is black. But it's just a very interesting combination of the two. It's like why choose one over the other? I think it might just be style. They want to make it have a statement, and I think that they will have the second piece go up to about here, and it will have that same curve, and it will just be completely cut off and closed in. We saw another piece like that the other day, and it had this little stand part, and it's like, well, why does it have that? And I think it goes from here all the way down to either here or here, so that the entire thing is sticking out, and it has basically a cutout of the ship.
Ian has a question. It's related to this about the Pez loader. He's asking, will the chopsticks present the box to the ship on the tower? Do we have thoughts on that?
No, the chopsticks would not be set to a proper width to do that. You could just use a crane. You could use the normal crane. It could even be on the ground for the ship, and this basically goes up to the ship, and the ship's been bolted down, but it's ready to be lifted or soon to be lifted onto the booster. However, on the other side of things, you could just do it inside of high bay or even in mega bay. It's any of those places just to lift it, and it's got these 4 points that you lift from. So it wouldn't make sense to use the chopsticks to do that. You don't have the ability to realign if you needed to. That's another issue. Let me see if there's anything else, at least from the aerial views, before we move on. I think there was a couple of small things.
Quick question from Just Omimo. He's saying hot cold equals condensation and moisture. Is that how it translates?
Yeah, if you cool it down and heat it up, and cool it down and heat it up with humidity, you'd get a lot of moisture building up on the surface of it. The inside, though, it should be just pretty much nitrogen or dry nitrogen plus oxygen, so they'll already filter the air going into the box. So that's going to be the cleanest environment that they'll have, and it won't be pressurized necessarily. It's just be they've purged it, and that's just the equivalent of a HEPA filter kind of direction that they're going, anyways. Oh, okay. So one thing that they've been doing, maybe it's the best picture. They've been adding the fence. They've been doing that since 2 weeks ago. That's a better aerial shot. So they've got the hovercraft here, and it's been landing here recently, and they've got a fence going in here. So you come in this way, you go around and come out this way. But they're all fencing this in, so you don't have the work site over here and all the garbage and trash and the noise really affecting this area and then the volleyball court. Because this is basically an area that they entertain at quite a bit. Nice little fire pit to roast marshmallows, so to speak. And um, yeah, they've been using this hovercraft quite a bit recently. They have this other one. They haven't really been using this one as far as I can tell. But they are capable of using it.
The little turf hexagon pad is new, right?
Yeah, that's new. They have had it since this week. There's a little bit more turf over here. I'm not sure if that's just the remnants, and they wanted specifically a hexagon shape to make it look nice. This is actually a bit new right here, I think. No, it's new. Something's new about this. I can't tell what though.
That's good though, because I've always been wondering, like, when they get out of the hovercraft, like, obviously the reason you're in hovercraft is partially due to the fact that it's like wet. So like when you get out and you're stepping in all the mud and stuff.
Yeah.
I was wondering if they were ever going to put like an actual landing pad with that.
Now I'm thinking about it. Is this AstroTurf? How do they keep it clean? Because this is going to be covered in mud and water when they park it here, and they're going to have to clean it regularly.
It's hovering. It hovers over mud and water.
When it hovers, but it splashes water and mud.
It'll buff out.
Okay, so there's those two things. Pretty much, I think that was it for the big updates there. This was something we kind of touched on a little bit last week, is that they've bought the parcels here, and now they have their little, I guess you could call them tiny homes. You've got these kind of parked all over the place. I remember seeing them here, and even in the trees over here. They're just moving along with basically producing more habitable spaces for the workers. So these ones aren't occupied yet, I believe, because, well, there's no people, and I don't think there's power quite yet. But things are moving along as far as their workers moving into the village area. But one thing you can see, the different color roofs, that basically is an indicator of which ones are SpaceX and which ones aren't. So the dark roofs, the gray roofs, those are basically SpaceX, and then the rest are the current and remaining village residents who are not SpaceX typically. Okay, so I think that's it for the area that I call the integrations area of the site. Let's go ahead and hit the launch site now. So Zach, have you taken a look at the images yet for this week, or are you fresh on stage 0 here?
I have a general idea of what's going on. There's some odd objects that we've seen out here on the suborbital pad. Next to the suborbital pad, we got some random. They almost look like steel boxes, which is weird. There's some similar boxes on the. Well, I'm going dizzy.
Sorry, I'm trying to go right to the very bottom because that's where they're at, I think. Here they are, right at the bottom. These are it. So they're called Ready Duct with an E. It's Red E Duct. And They're concrete. They're strong. They actually interlock these pieces together. So you can see they're like Legos. So this side goes into this side, and they basically once you dig the hole or the what is it called, the trench, you basically place these in, hook them together, and they actually already have a seal directly attached to the other side. You can add. I think I didn't read the whole document, but I think there's other things that you can put on to seal them. So these should be watertight, this variety, but it very much increases their speed of being able to put things together. So first quarter of next year.
Oh, I know what these are. So if they're going to close in the integration tower, then they're going to need to have some sort of um, like they're going to have HVAC inside of it if they're closed in, right? So maybe that is vertical HVAC ductwork for the building.
No. This is ductwork, not ductwork. This is conduit, pre-made conduit. It's spread out, and it's meant for like how they built the site for electrical, for the test stands, and even let's say the orbital site. They ran tons and tons of conduit. This, you just buy it in bulk. You attach them together. They interlock so that you can pretty much stick them together, and within minutes start driving over it as soon as you throw the dirt on top. Pretty much, that's what these are for.
So they're probably going to get started on suborbital C or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, I think so. I think first quarter of next year, they're just basically waiting for that authorization from that would be who, the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yep. They already
And
got the concrete culverts as well too.
yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Thomas. Though, if that's gonna happen, why would we not also expect them to go for the second launch pad as well immediately? Well, never mind. So the suborbital C is within the footprint that they already. It's basically right next to suborbital pad B, right? So it's not like they need to have access to any of the wetlands necessarily, right? It's just all on the land that they're already on.
Yeah, so the second launch site, at least the blueprints put it around in this section right in here. This one though is odd because it's like test stand C was placed right in about here. And it's just like this area to this area, there's some problems. Like it's halfway between this one and covers this part right here a little bit. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some issues if they wanted to start building immediately. But I'm hoping that they can get that Army Corps of Engineers approval for this part, and additionally like areas like this. But slowly building this out, that's going to take some time. The thing that we kind of touched on earlier, that map from Google Maps, the Astra area. I have a theory. I'll just quickly run it. So
And while you're doing that,
yeah,
I was just gonna say, like, to fill in that wetlands area, like just from walking on it, like I've been back there several times. I feel like it's not as simple as just putting dirt on top of it. Like you got to dig probably a solid 10 feet down and then backfill it because it's that soft.
you have to take out all the organics. So that's the top 3, 4, 5, whatever feet layer of material. You have to remove all of that, bring it off site somewhere else. You can even potentially sell it, but this is very briny, salty soil. So yeah, they'll have some backfill later on for some other project once they've let that go through its process. But the materials that they're going to be bringing out of here is going to be quite a bit. They did the same thing here when they filled in this area. So this is the area that they were approved for. So getting back to the Army Corps of Engineers and how some of that works, they have this area of plots of land, which would be perfect for them to basically make it into areas like this. For acre, foot for foot, they need to make just like the area here is. So they will be filling in quite a bit in here to make that other launch site. They will need to basically go through and make this It's kind of artificial at first, but it works as long as you go through and dig down and allow it to become marshy soil. It works as far as the governance goes. So it's going to be probably dug down and plants planted in here that are similar to the ones up there. That's what my theory is so far. They could do it somewhere else, but this would be a perfect spot because they own a bunch of the land here. All right, back to this area. So let's see, was there anything else that, oh, big one right there.
Yeah, we got most of the scaffolding removed from 24, at least the backside, right?
Yep. So here's a good view of that. So the scaffolding used to go all the way up. And as of yesterday, this is where it was at. It's probably down to about here or here today.
I can't see anything, honestly.
Wow, they work too fast.
Oh, that's already gone?
I mean, I just have to double check another angle, but it looks like it's gone.
Interesting.
Well, if you
Yeah.
if you want to post the link to Rover 2 or Nerdle or any of the other cams, we do have approval to take a look at them. And there's some exciting news actually coming out tomorrow on some work we're doing. All right, so pulling that up. Thank you. Yeah, I do not see any scaffolding, at least in this area. There might be a little bit in here. But yeah, I don't see anything in this area. They've cleaned it up. So my theory was that they would bring it all the way to the top for fit and finish, and they only went up to here, which the fit and finish part up to there and down here, that apparently might be still holding, but the rest of the theory that they would go all the way to the top is incorrect.
Well, that's kind of a good thing. Glad they didn't
Yeah.
have to go all the way up. But we kind of understand why that was. I mean, it's kind of tough to fully get into it, but I mean, we've seen most of the stuff they've done with that scaffolding. And to some degree, it really has to do with the fact that the high bay is completely full. So ideally, going back into the high bay where they don't have to worry about wind wasn't really an option right now because they have too many ships inside of the high bay. So they had to do it on the launch site, which was interesting because it seems like they're also doing some upgrades to suborbital pad B, even though we can't really see what they're doing down there. I'm pretty sure once those tarps are removed, that we'll see that they've been doing some upgrades to that testing.
Yeah, this is bringing it back to what you were talking about, the changes and upgrades that they have to ship 24. So they did go through, remove, it looks actually not just 3 rows, but 4 rows of tiles down here. And they basically went through, put in some well doublers along the seam. So that's about 6 feet up right here. And then they removed the tiles here on these seams for these rings. And we're not exactly sure what they did, but one thing that I noticed is just this slight discrepancy on the tile like this. It's raised at this edge, and it almost seems like there's something underneath. It might be the way they put it together with the glue, but each of these just looks a bit more raised on the left-hand side with this top part sticking out a bit. The bottom might be sticking out too. It's just harder to see.
Raised, or do you think it's just the discoloration between the newer tiles versus the older tiles that are making it look like they pop?
Both. So it's the speculation is in my back of my mind is thinking, did they put in a small well doubler basically between these parts right in here, and then it's raising up this area of the tile, or maybe even it's up here. But it's one of those things where it's like you have an expectation of what you might be seeing or what you might be looking for, and then you'll start to see it. But my favorite part is this tile right here. They glued it on, but it's just this big old hash symbol. But yeah, the question is, did they actually change anything there? They may have or they may have not. We're not sure. Would have to take other photos that we do not have, other video we do not have to find that answer out. So unfortunately, we don't know. But this one we do know. They did put a well doubler in there on the seam. They do still have work to do with these tiles. There's not too much more work. You can see which tiles they've replaced. They're pretty obvious. So all the ones that are dark. And even a bunch of tiles in here on this side were replaced. They're quite dark on a bunch of these.
Yeah, it's odd that some of the ones near the top, the flaps, still haven't been replaced.
Lower from here?
Aft flaps.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Aft flaps.
Right?
Yeah. They've got tiles that are just kind of all over the place. The one thing that is always an issue, and you can get a bar to fix this, which will give you an audible indication that you're too close to an object and how close you are. But I think it gets ignored a lot of times, but it's a safety feature on boom lifts. So they've got the boom lifts that they go up to replace tiles, and it helps determine, I'm about to hit something. I should probably not move any closer to the vehicle, especially in windy conditions. It'll just start knocking against these tiles and destroying them. So it's like you replace, let's say, a row of tiles, or let's say this tile right here. You replace this one. Oh, you got to replace a bunch here. Oh, you got to replace a bunch here, because each time you do, you keep running into it, and that's never a good position to be in. Otherwise, it might just be known as job security.
Damage 2, or damage 1, replace 2.
Yeah, damage 1, break 2, or replace 1, damage 2. There you go. Pretty soon, it's just a whole triangle of brand new ones down at the bottom. Oh, I don't want to see that kind of thing happen. And we've seen it plenty enough where the boom lifts they're up here and then they just knock right into it. And I think that one's pretty close, but it's not a dead on angle, so you can't see how close they are. All right, so let me go back to some flyover photos, because that's what, I'm sorry for making you dizzy. Let me not do that.
Really quick, Thomas, do we have some images of orbital pad B while we're over there?
From the air and then the ground?
Well, they did some stuff with the QD. I posted a tweet right before the show, but it'll be cool to show for anybody who hasn't seen that yet.
There's a ground photo of A.
Was it A? I thought it was a different one.
Yeah, they've done more than one.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, let me jump down to pad A from the back, right?
Yes. From the front.
Oh, okay, sorry. Let me look at that one.
So it's not as fancy as the other ones, but Zach can take this.
Well, this is what we wanted. So
yeah.
I don't know if anybody, I think there's got to be a better image that is a little bit closer up on this one. But kind of as a joke, I tweeted out a few months ago that the process of covering all these holes just takes a really long time, because they have to use tape to actually place it over the hole. And I think, like, with these big ones, you got to use like 8 or 9 strips of it in order to actually cover up the full valve hole. So the idea was that using some kind of like 3D printed plug or something like that, you could just put a cap on it, which seems that they've finally done. So that's nice. They as much as it's kind of like a, I don't want to call it an aesthetic thing. That doesn't really matter. It's really all about productivity in my mind. It's like, it takes a very long time to get the ship off of both the transport stand, the transport stand, the test stand, and the from the orbital launch mount. So, part of that process is covering up all the QDs. With the booster, they have to install or remove an adapter plate, which is on there, before they can lift it off, and also they have to reinstall it before they can release it from the chopsticks when they put it back on the transport stand. So, little things like this where they're able to just slap a plug in there, instead of having to actually, manually tape everything down is a really good progress in my opinion. And these ones are actually really interesting. I'm not sure how this works, but it appears to me that there's some sort of dial in the middle. Like I'm seeing like a three-pointed like dial in there where you can actually turn it. So I'm assuming that may be how they actually release air pressure out of there. So like they put the cap on, turn the dial, and it's almost like a suction cup where it squeezes everything out and holds it on there. Like through a vacuum essentially. But I'm not really 100% sure. I only see it on one of them. That's the left. I think that's LOX. Yeah, your LOX.
I mean, getting to the main point of what you were saying before is the how long do you think it would actually take for them to put these on right now? Like, how long do you think that it would be?
I mean, probably 10 minutes versus 2 hours.
Okay, so like 10 to 15. And the 2 hours, we've actually seen them take seriously that long. The Booster 7, they were going through and they were about to do a lift. And you saw this guy go up. He took probably 15 minutes, maybe more, taking off all the tape. And then we saw him come back up later, and it took him probably 45 minutes to put the tape back on because the lift wasn't happening.
Yep.
And then they had to take it off again, so that's another 15 minutes. And then later on, they put it back on, and it took another at least 45 because it's one strip at a time, piece by piece. This, there's still some tape on them. They've obviously just thrown these as caps with tape on it,
Yeah,
and
that was
that'll work.
odd. I was wondering what that was about. I'm not sure if that's actually sealing the like the space between the two of them. That almost looks like it's just on the outer edge of the cap.
Well, think of it this way: there could be the edge, the edge and the surface itself is an area that they do not want to get contaminants. So this is one way to help prevent that.
It almost looks like to me like they machined these so fast that they didn't have time to like. I forget what the actual term is. I'm losing my manufacturing vocabulary, but if you don't have time to soften those edges on the caps, because they're made of steel, right? And they're pretty sharp edges, so it could be that the tape is there to make it so that they're easier to handle without cutting yourself.
And my thought was that they're just sticking on these caps, that this was a quick process because you don't want to spend, hours and hours on CAD building these things and printing them out or casting them or something. But then that kind of at the same time throws everybody through a works because on that same subject, you want to jump to the other one. It's kind of special here. Let's see if I can find the particular image here.
And while you're doing that, I will go ahead and issue a correction on what I said previously, that it was 3D printed. Off looking at it closely, it looks like it's actually machined. So what we're looking at, what Thomas is about to show us, is an equivalent plate that goes on the QD for the ship, but on the integration tower. So this one is one solid piece instead of being like, I think it's 6 individual, it may be more than that, at least 6 individual caps. Like this is just one huge cap that they place at one time. So given that it's machined, my question, I wonder how they got this up there. Like I don't know if the crane had to lift it into place or if it's wide enough for them to just lift it with like 1 or 2 guys.
It's either machined or cast. The way they built this, it's I can't tell which way they built it, but
it's really tough to tell. You'd have to know the material in order to really know what they did.
You have to go up to the thing and then knock on it, and it's like, oh, it's plastic.
It's probably plastic because it's white. It's most likely plastic, and then
we'll tell if it starts to yellow. Exactly,
and well, the thing is that like the difference in materials. The reason you would want to use plastic is because, I guess it kind of has something to do with like the way the expansion is going to happen when it heats up. So like dissimilar materials, like if you are heating up a metal cap at the same time you're heating up the metal QD, they're probably going to actually stick together, especially if they're different grades of steel. Like one of them's going to expand faster than the other. But with that plastic cap, I have a feeling it's a lot easier to remove, and you don't have to really worry about the thermal expansion of the actual cap itself.
Well, this one is it's interesting because it's like you don't want it to be heavy. If it's made of metal, if it's too heavy, you have people trying to pick it up, and it's like you want to be able to manipulate this a lot quicker than that. You don't want to bring a crane in just to move this. You'd have to bring in either Grove crane that's fully extended, or the Lee Bear that they have on site, Marvin.
Yeah, being made out of some sort of plastic makes a lot of sense because, again, just weight-wise, it allows you to lift it up with one person instead of needing a crane.
Yeah, I would worry about like if it was made of aluminum, being dissimilar metals, that would be a potential issue. But if it's been painted, because obviously this is a white color, plastic or even metal, like aluminum, it could work, but it would be still at risk, especially for corrosion. We'll see. If this starts to corrode, we'll know exactly what it is, because everything starts to just rust around here.
Yeah, for
You got
sure.
stainless steel, it will rust.
I mean, that QD is looking pretty good now. I mean, they've ever since they changed it out, it looks a lot cleaner just in general. We still haven't really seen what they've done with the attachment that they added onto the top of it, with behind.
You know what? I think as a funny idea, which might be true, it's nothing to do with you and time saving and your tweet. It's all about ITAR, and NASA's like, oh, by the way, you can't look at the QD because it's ITAR related. And it's like,
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
let's cover it up.
No valves on camera. We don't want the valves seen. Everybody knows they're butterflies. We don't want them to see the valves.
Yeah, it's something as silly as that. And it's like, we've got a million pictures because it's we're taking it from public areas, but NASA really, for SLS, after it had some destruction on the pad, they were pretty adamant about photographers not taking photos of it because they needed to secure it. It was all ITAR. That was the funniest part about it. It's like,
that is, honestly, I didn't even really think about that, but that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it might be true. It's like NASA's like, nudge nudge SpaceX, and they're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, we didn't do it because of your tweet. We did it because NASA doesn't want anybody seeing this.
Yeah, now it saves them time and the ITAR stuff.
I would say the last major thing that we have on this QD arm would be to enable the work platforms to move out automatically instead of manually with the chain hoist. So without the actual mechanism that allows it to retract and extend, they have to do all this stuff manually. So that's one thing that I'm still expecting to see.
Oh, that's right here. This part right here is the way they do that. So this rod is connected directly through here, and it pulls and pushes to allow them to take this work platform all the way out and back.
When was that
When
set
did they
up?
add that?
This was weeks and weeks ago that they had this, but this is the first one that we've seen clear.
Is it manual? You have to pull it in?
It might be manual, but it's a pretty simple system because they do it all the time.
It's just a curved rod that they...
Yeah, it's just got some fulcrum here that you can pull from, because if you try to pull on this, it's never going to rotate, so they stick it out further. You can see on this one. And then it just rotates, and this is the pivot axis right here that basically just pulls it all in, and it's either on a chain hoist
rod going through that to stop it from moving? Because if so, I hate that. The one going vertically.
This is the steel rod going from here all the way through.
There's one going vertically through the trusses. This would be good to have our new feature to draw on it. But there's a rod going from all the way to the top to the bottom, just a vertical rod that's going up through the...
If you want to guide my mouse, I can.
Your mouse is on it.
This the ladder?
Is that... No, I don't think that's the ladder. Is
that you're talking about this rod right here, I think.
No, to the one you were just on the left. It looks
this is a ladder right here. So it's got each one of these.
It almost looks like just one rod that's like a plate rod that's like going through it to like a doorstop.
Yeah, so this definitely works for pulling. Now I'm thinking about the actual rod here for pushing, because if this is flexible enough to pull, I don't know if it would be flexible enough to push as well. I'm now double checking that to see if there's anywhere else that they have that would be able to bring them back like this. Maybe it's just chain hoists on the side and we can't see them, but it should be like right in here. Anything would produce that kind of movement. So this is all same part right here. It's all connected into this. Yeah, I'm not seeing where they're pulling it back from. You should see something. Maybe it's up there, but I don't see it. But it's either this mechanism is doing both, or they have a separate mechanism in this area.
Very interesting. I've never seen that little attachment before.
Okay, so we
Okay,
actually,
they
I
do
think,
that
have
piped up a little
two
bit.
of these. So we've got one right here that's a skid with all sorts of valves, and you can see the valves here and here. And then you've got some pipe work.
I think I know what this is. So, right now, what we haven't seen is during the fueling process of the Starship, they should be doing Raptor chill collection. Raptor chill should be happening during the fueling process of the ship. Like as soon as they start to put liquid oxygen on either the booster or the Starship, Raptor chill begins. And I don't know if it's just like a necessary thing, like as long as there's fuel, it's going to be doing the Raptor chill process, or if it's a time thing, like they really need that much time to chill those engines down. But given, and I think this is maybe one thing, Jax, did we talk about this? The Raptor chill pipe, the pipes that were, or the
I don't
flex
think
hoses
so.
that were connected.
Not yet.
All right, let's go back, Thomas. Let's go back to ship 25. 25.
24 on pad B.
It's on 24.
So what we talked about this morning?
The hoses.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So the hoses are on 24.
On the leeward side.
Okay, so over here, this is what we talked about in this section.
So
All
if
right.
you zoom into the vents where the Raptor chill collection or the Raptor chill venting happens.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. So you have hoses connected to those where it appears that they're now going to be collecting the Raptor chill venting because, well, the reason is a long reason. I'm actually working on an episode right now, which is part 2 of the deep dive, and it kind of gets into Raptor chill collection. I'm not going to mention this part in there because I'm already done with that episode, so I'm not going to go back and edit it. However, on this ship 24, we can see that they've got those hoses connected to actually collect the Raptor chill venting. And in my opinion, the one that we see on top of the SQD arm is the same thing. So it's going to divert those. They're going to basically have to attach hoses to those and divert it over to that new attachment that they put on top of the QD arm. So it's not Ultra Purge like we thought it was. It's just Raptor Chill Collection, which is weird because that's a unless they break free, unless they somehow eject themselves, like that is static fire testing mode, in my opinion. I don't get. I get it for the suborbital stands. I don't get why they would need it on the integration tower, but to me, that's the only thing that makes sense because that's the only thing that they've added on the test stand. So.
Well, there's kind of this one right here, and then
that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, there was something else going on right in here as well, I think. Nope, I think it's just this one, and I saw it in 2 different directions. Okay, so it could be just you're looking at 2 options: Ultra Purge and the Raptor collection, or just collection, or both. It's one or the other. It's like,
yeah, I mean, so
we've got
the
4
ship is going to be
valves.
facing the tower, right? So the Raptor chill venting is going to be coming out of the ship and basically spraying to either side of the QD. And depending on where the wind is blowing, it's obviously one way or another, half of that venting is going to be touching this QD arm. So instead of allowing that to happen, instead of having that liquid flow entering the building and freezing up valves or pipes, like whatever you need to disconnect this, sensors, cameras. I mean, if you don't want ice on your cameras, then it's probably a good idea to collect that venting, and I think this is what that is.
Well, it's not just venting; it literally will be pouring out liquid oxygen at times when you're
Yeah.
doing engine chill, because it's getting that cold, and it goes from like where it's gasifying all of the oxygen, and then it goes to, well, we've got a large amount of locks coming out, and the valves one is the big one. It's like if you can't release pressure on your vehicle because your valves are stuck, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I've been hesitant on releasing this next episode because it's all about Raptor Chill Collection, and I'm not 100% sold on it. But this kind of confirms to me that it's a big deal for them to collect Raptor Chill venting. So, yeah, hopefully that one will be done by Monday, and then you guys can see that. But weird how these things happen, where you're like looking for clues that your theory is correct, and then they do something like this in order to confirm it.
I've had the hope that would do something like this for months now, and now they've finally done it. It's like, okay, they're actually doing Raptor Chill Collection.
Yep.
And the question, like, this doesn't go all the way down and then back up to here, because this is Ultra Purge. So you're right, these are two separate systems.
I'll just say this is not the first time it's happened.
Well, we've seen all sorts of problems with
Well,
Raptor Chill, and then we've also seen that on the old models they had a methane port that was down near the bottom right here, and it would always catch fire on, not always, but like every other mission it would catch fire. So SN5, it was in flight, was on fire. SN15, SN10, was SN8 as well. I can't remember because it blew up, and a bunch of the other ones blew up, and we don't even know about SN9. But they always liked to catch fire because it was leaking out methane gas, and it was just catching fire in the normal atmosphere after the engines just heated up and lit it up right there, and just was just a nice little torch off the side of the vehicle.
yeah,
It's not a huge problem, but it was something that didn't look good.
The thing is that the oxygen that comes out of those vents is a big deal. It's not, oh, it's just oxygen, like at least it's not methane. Like, no, it's still a problem either way. So they do not want that happening. They have worked around it, but they don't want that actually happening.
I do like the idea, for instance, that the vehicle, if they do ever do this in the future, that the engine chill ports like this would stay attached to a hose. It's a hose that quickly pulls away, but it's on the arm, and the arm's been retracted basically. So that would be a nice feature. And to basically just keep topping it off is that you have the instead of the current QD system, you'd have the a QD system with a panel that is attached to it, so it pulls away, different from the one we have currently, which you can't have both, or maybe you can, but you'd have to have some way of adding locks to the system for the engine shield just to keep topping it off, because otherwise you're taking from your current reserves, and it's maybe like, oh, half a ton, which might not be a lot, but that still feels like there's a bit of room of extra propellant you could have had.
Yeah. Thomas, I think we should cover the orbital pad because we're approaching the point where there's about 10 minutes left in this episode. And if you guys have followed Corey or Seabass 3D on Twitter, he's about to do a little premiere for his Apollo 11 landing animation as soon as the show ends. So I don't want to go over time because it would be nice if all of you hop in there. So I feel like we should cover the rest of the launch mount updates.
Okay, so quick, big news here. They're removing the Fondag, the brand new Fondag that they just placed. They're removing it. So it's obvious in the ground shots. It's not as obvious in the aerial shots. But let me actually go to the beginning again.
Well, I think in the aerial shots they hadn't started to remove it yet.
Yeah, but you can see how bad it was.
Yeah.
Like you can see, this is where they will spray paint it to put the what was that called? The lift for doing Raptors and such. They basically have the legs marked out for where they want to basically put it, and then they've got the platform itself that we call BART. But here's a huge one. If you look at the legs here, and maybe the other side real quick. And I know that you're needed to head off here promptly, Zach, so we won't make
Yeah,
it too
so
long.
I will
So
be
this
making my drive
side
back to Chicago tomorrow, or today, actually.
today and tomorrow, because it's going to take that long.
Yeah, I like to do drives all the way through. I don't stop. So
All right, so let's go back to the ground shots. Nice wide shot here of the table and the legs. That should be a good one, but I think there's better. Yes. I've seen all of them and like, yes to all.
So while you're looking for
Here
the
we go.
photo, Jap Klings? I can't say the name, forgive me. They're asking, does the pipework on the OLM for the Raptor chill mean that they will now need a different SQD, or are they going to hand connect those everywhere? Since we're looking at the
I
OLM.
would recommend waiting a few days for this episode to come out, and hopefully that will answer your questions.
Well, if one doesn't work, they can do the other. That's another way to look at it, because that's how SpaceX works. They're like, oh, it didn't work. Let's try it something else. Okay, so
Lord, on that leg looks ugly.
it's ugly, but it's not painted yet, and that'll help fix it.
Sure.
But I went through and looked up the materials that are like this. So I saw them going through using a caulk gun. I'm not sure if these ones actually are caulk because it looks like a spray. It might be a zinc spray, but they were using some sort of caulk gun on some of the welds on the other side that were on R2 or Rover 2. But yeah, it looks like they're spraying on something that's maybe like a zinc coating for the welds so that it's less likely to corrode. But that's our best guess is that it's a zinc coating. So basically the zinc will create an oxidation layer so it can't oxidize any further. But yeah, I'm liking it. It doesn't look 100% fabulous, but it looks decent. We're
I
moving
like
there.
not being able to see the pipes. Honestly, it's really cool. I'm excited to see what it looks like once it's painted. I think it'll be much more official looking.
I got another question for you real fast. Anthony Monahan wants to know, why doesn't the OLM have a fire tunnel?
A fire tunnel?
I think a flame diverter is what that would
No,
be.
I think a flame trench like it's Stennis and stuff like that.
Oh, I mean, usually, honestly, that's like the number one question I get on my videos, and I don't have an answer for that. I just
Water table. That's the simple
I don't,
answer.
yeah, and I don't think they need it, truthfully. Like, it seems like they do, but I don't think they do.
So they bring up this platform underneath to work on it. Having a flame diverter or anything down here that will interfere with getting that platform or the platform that they use to lift the Raptors, so the Raptor lift platform, would really slow them down dramatically. It's like you'd have to take down this thing, and it's going to take several hours, and that's on a rush schedule. Otherwise, it's going to be even longer, and so you're going to be dealing with a complicated mess of, well, we're trying to get our first flight done, but this thing's in the way. The closest thing I think we'll ever see uh, would be steel plates. Like that would be a simple solution to a lot of those problems with the Fondag or Martite. And actually, the Fondag, despite like how rough it was, they only let it cure for like 3 days, 4 days, maybe
Less than that.
less than that. Okay, which the longer you let it cure, the less water content there is to basically make it explode.
Yeah, it says it's able to be used in 7 hours?
You could stand on it in 7 hours, but you're not
Yeah,
supposed
that
to
doesn't
use
mean
it
you
for
should
like a
be.
week. Like a
That
week
doesn't
was the
mean you should.
minimum, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, being structurally stable in 7 hours doesn't mean you should put half a million pounds of force on it 36 hours later. So when you
Yeah.
look at it from above, you can see the craters in the ground where the Raptor engines were firing. I feel like that's a good one for us to look at.
Yeah, we were looking at it briefly a bit ago.
Oh, sorry. I must have missed that.
Let's look at it from the other side. Ouch. So these are the areas like it's not looking too bad, but like this one, it's completely missing a huge chunk. Like you've got a shadow. This one, the surface layer is removed, and you've got something right there that may have exploded out. It's just smaller divots, but it's not nearly as bad as what happened with the Martite. The Martite, it basically acts as a binder to the concrete underneath, and so you get chunks of Martite flying off because the concrete broke up underneath it, exploded. Um, what's interesting is that you can take the Fondag and, like, if you had problems like these, you just put Martite over it, and the Martite will work great because it's flexible, it's malleable, it can be, it's an epoxy, 3-part epoxy compound, so you can basically spackle it in and smooth it out, and now you don't have the divot, and it's fire resistant and heat resistant and everything else. That's great, and it actually sticks to the Fondag really well. Whereas Martite with concrete, the concrete breaks, and the Fonda or the Martite can't hold on anymore. It's just like, I'm trying to hold you together, but you want to explode underneath me, and I can't keep you together because the heat just gets transferred right through. It turns hot red. You had a video you posted like that.
Oh yeah, I think that was SN15 launch.
Yeah. All right. What other things do we want to jump at? You've got like 2 minutes left.
That was all that I had for today.
All right. Do we have any other questions, Indian Star?
No questions, but I've been asking questions, but the donations are what's coming through real fast. We have a $10 donation from Cranky Old Man who says, for pilot, fuel, and Sunny Biscuits, thanks for your great work, Mauricio, and thanks to the commentators for your time. There's a $25 donation from Conrad Gresset. Anthony Monahan donated. Oh no, yeah, Anthony Monahan donated €2.49, and then Rocket donated $9.99. There was a $10 donation from John Dopker just now to another great show. Y'all have been eventful as well as entertaining. Wow, let's just go for the entertaining next time. And then Mistletoe Prophet just donated $10 and says, yeah, what John said.
All right. I'm going to post this link in the chat for you guys once the show ends. So that will be the link for Corey's animation. So hopefully we'll see you guys over there as well. But
if I can just, there's one photo I completely forgot to talk about, and I want to very quickly show.
Yes, do it. What is
you
it?
Pull up the ground photo of Booster 9.
Booster 9. Okay.
In the wide bay, down on the chine.
This one?
Yeah. If you can
Perfect.
go to the chine. Booster 9. We've been wondering, there aren't HPUs. Found the Starlink dish. It's on top of the chines now.
It's where you thought it would be, and there it is. And the thing that we had a problem with was the size, and we're like, will it fit? It fits.
It fits. Yeah, that's completely forgot to mention that, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Oh, that's a big one. We just kind of glossed that one over.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Cool.
All right, Jax, do you want to start it off and sign us off so far?
Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us again. We had a bit of a rough start there, but I think it went pretty well after that. A lot of interesting photos again this week. Looking forward to next week's again. I'm always looking forward to the next week's of photos. But yeah, thanks for having me. I guess I'll pass it to Thomas.
It's been wonderful to go through and guide you through the Starbase once again, and I'll hand it off to Zach.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't so far. And to those of you who are fans of the France national team, congratulations on your win over England. Sorry to all our friends from the UK.
Yeah.
And the rest of you, I will see you all next week. I am headed back to Chicago, so about to start my drive after this. See you guys later.
You want to go next?
Indian Star, you can go. Then
Okay.
Mauricio, you want to sign us off?
That's gonna be kind of hard. I don't have it ready to go. So I guess I'll go, and then Indian Star can do it. So I want to again apologize for the inconvenience and the technical issues we had earlier, but sure we'll have it sorted out for the next one. And thanks everybody for watching and the support, and for the commentators and the team. And thank you very much. Anything, sir?
I'll just say bye. Sorry for the issues. We won't have them next week, I guarantee. And hopefully I'll say this right. Stage separation complete. Love you, bye? No. Go on, say it.
No, we're good.
Deuces, everybody. Thank you.